This is the Meeting of Minds podcast with me, Philippa Robinson. In this episode of the Meeting of Minds podcast, I'm in conversation with Callys. We worked at the same place for about a year, and since we both left, Callys has gone on to further study and land her dream job. She is a real force to be reckoned with. Callys is driven, hardworking and gutsy. I'm so glad we have stayed in touch. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Now over to Callys. Callys, hi.
Hi, Philippa.
Hi, welcome to the podcast. And as you know, we're here to talk about 20s, and you are perfectly right in the middle of your 20s as of a couple of weeks ago. So it would be really great if you could start and just tell us a little bit about what your 20s have been like so far.
My 20s. So, yeah, like you said, I turned 25 2 weeks ago. So I'm sort of right in the midpoint. And I'd say I've probably gone through I can't say I've gone through the most confusing bit, but I think early 20s are. So so far in my 20s, I've been to uni. I went straight to uni from school. Then I had a year where I obviously met you at work, or 2 years. And then I went back to uni. So I've sort of been semi-adult, semi-earning, and then went back to student again. And now I'm back to earning and working again. So I think my 20s have been I've moved around a lot. But I think I'm finally sort of settling. So yeah, I've been half earning, half poor as a student, but done a law degree, done a law master's and the solicitor's course. So I'm finally sort of on track to finally got all the academics out of the way. So yeah, a lot of my 20s has been spent studying and really grueling and really hard, but I'm glad that I can now actually do the bit I want to do rather than just the prep bit of, finally it's just there's always so many hurdles to jump over to finally be where you actually want to be career-wise. So yeah, start a career.
It can seem like such a slog, can't it? When it's course after course after course.
Especially when it's just tick boxing, like got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. It kind of sometimes can take the passion out of it a bit. But
and now you're here, and you've got all the academics out the way. How is it in reality?
I mean, it's nothing like no uni can ever teach you. No university can teach you how to. So because I'm doing crime, obviously it's really hard to teach you at uni how to be with people that are, from every inch of every type of category of person, age of person, type of person, background of person. No amount of preparation, and you think you've studied the course and you know the books and you know the law, but no amount of school or uni can teach you how to prep you how to be with people who are just, obviously I'm only meeting people when their lives have like really messed up, or they've like run into a really difficult bit of their lives. So I think it's going to take the whole of my 20s to learn and know what I'm doing in this job, but it's nice to finally be doing the action bit rather than the prep.
The action bit. I have you sort of I'm now imagining you dressed like an action man, sort of like swooping into police stations, and it's okay, Callys here,
I'm here. Oh, yeah,
have no fear. And is it anything like it is on the telly?
No, it's so not as glamorous. It's so unglamorous. It's no sleep. Everyone's angry. No one wants to be there. It's not glamorous at all, but it is just constantly surprising and interesting. So I'm never bored. So it is, and it's, you've constantly got something to talk about. It's constantly fascinating, and it's constantly makes me laugh. The situations that people get into are just absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, no, it's nothing like the telly. I mean, court is a bit like telly, but it's just so much waiting. There's a lot of waiting, and you're relying on people all the time. So there's always something that's going to be messing it up. So yeah, it's nowhere near as glamorous, but it is 100% as fun.
Well, gosh, that's brilliant to hear that. Certainly for me, having had a long career in the law, but not doing what you're doing, it's fabulous for me to hear that you are enjoying it. And you just use the word fun.
Yeah, it
Wow.
is. Which I know about law. Who'd have thought?
Well, I certainly wouldn't. That is amazing.
I think any other area of law is probably bores everyone to death, but it's just I just love people. I love working with people. People just are so fascinating. Like, you just think, how on earth have you got yourself into that situation? But yeah, no, it is really fun.
And I think, you know, if you find them fascinating, that do you find that might help you have a bit of compassion for them, maybe in their moment of, you know, they've got themselves in a bit of a mess, haven't they, if they're meeting you in the police station in the middle of the night?
I think that's what's so interesting. You can obviously get a bit of paper or an email in front ahead of going, that like the custody record, that whatever they've done, and then you think, oh gosh, like this, you know, this person, and then you meet them after an hour and you think, obviously I can't say I understand everyone that I meet, but as soon as you then sort of find out a bit more and like piece the puzzle together about each person, it does, you can sort of feel compassion of how people have got themselves into these tricky situations, and that they 100% can't get themselves out of it without a third party coming in and sort of sorting their lives out a bit. So
Gosh, I mean, it's so far removed from the sort of law that I did. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what it's like. So, but it's great to hear that you're enjoying it, because I know when we met at the place we both used to work at, and neither of us are there now, we're both doing different things, but it's really great that, you know, you were really passionate about that's what you wanted to do. And so you've gone off and you've worked, whilst doing the course that you needed to do to get you on to the next bit, and now you've got a job and you're working, gosh, all hours by the sounds of it, all times of day and night, and are you doing the duty rota or whatever it is?
I'm on the duty rota, so I'm on next Wednesday, and I'm on Boxing Day, which is a bit, obviously, because I'm last in, so we get myself and my other new colleague, we get Christmas Day and Boxing Day. So I was lucky enough to get Boxing Day, because at least I can travel. The trains are back on, but yeah, all hours, you know, I'll get phone calls like 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 1 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and then you have to get up again at 7 for work. But I suppose I'm running on, you know, like adrenaline at the moment, and I'm just sort of loving it. So, but I think
adrenaline and coffee, I should imagine,
and coffee, or something.
And how is it, right? So I don't want to suggest for 1 minute that you shouldn't be okay in this situation, but how is it, you know, being, you know, a young woman going into you know, that environment, into the police station, into wherever you're going, and like, you know, the dead of night, and how is that always okay? Do they make sure you're okay, or is there ever, I don't know, do you ever feel frightened?
I do more. It's really hard to as a young female, and also there's hardly any young people, and there's definitely hardly any females that do this job. So I think you walk in and you kind of expect to be like, oh, you know, who's this young dumb blonde, she's not gonna have a clue what she's doing, she's fresh out of uni, and it's really hard. But that's one of the positives I've actually found of COVID, is that I've managed to do quite a lot of police stations, like the first couple, to sort of get me into the gist of it. I either did them by phone or I did them by Zoom, and weirdly I had more confidence than maybe not necessarily seeing me in the flesh for the first time. That now I've kind of done my first 5 and I know what I'm doing and I know the way of how it works, that now when I do not swan in but go in, I feel a lot more confident. Because weirdly, I mean, clients can sniff out you know, inexperience from a mile off, and obviously the police can too. But so weirdly, that sort of given me, I was quite lucky that I had that dry run of them not having a clue who I was. I think my voice maybe sounds a bit older over the phone than maybe if you saw me. So but yeah, it's scary, you never know what's going to happen, but maybe I've just been really lucky so far that I haven't really had any terrible experiences. But I think it took me a long time to choose where to work. And I am just completely surrounded by the most supporting colleagues. If I called up my supervisor at 3 a.m. and said, look, I don't know what I'm doing, she'd be there in half an hour. And I think that's really quite rare. So I constantly feel like I've got this jacket of support on. So maybe that's why it's just a representation of I work somewhere really good.
Well, that is, first of all, can I just say, I'm just in awe of you. I think you're amazing. So well done you for getting the job that you want and doing what you're doing, because, you know, I'm not sure I would have had the gumption, for want of a better word, to go and do that. I just sat in an office. I mean, yes, okay, I work really long hours, but I just sat in a, you know, in a comfy office. So, you know, I'm well impressed. And also, I think that speaks volumes of the place that you work. You know, and in this, you know, I've been doing a lot of listening to stuff about work and the future of work, and actually, you know, young people in their 20s want to work somewhere where they do feel that they are getting responsibility, but with that you need support. Because I think far too many people are either don't get responsibility, so are bored rigid, or are given responsibility but don't have the support, and then you know, that sink or swim sort of, you know, because you don't want to be the one who's sinking. So actually to put you into that situation, which, you know, don't get me wrong, it does sound like, you know, you really are having to dig deep and find your sort of courage, shall we say, but equally, you know, you've got the support, so that sounds fabulous.
Yeah, I think maybe it's just like been quite a good time. I think with everything that's probably gone on in the last decade, like even down to like Me Too and stuff, there's been such a shift in, you know, at the workplace. Definitely, like in law, it was sort of like you said, like sink or swim, and you don't need support. We didn't have support. You just have to get on with it. If you're not good enough and you can't keep up, then you're not meant to be here. I think there's been such a shift. You know, I definitely feel like all my friends like work in the city in like really crazy jobs, but I think there has been a big transition with actually it's become really important to like be protected and looked after in the workplace. Whereas before the horrible corporate capitalism, you know, be there all these hours and sort of like, you know, no sleep and just survive off of nothing. I think that's sort of, we've come away from that now. Which is great.
Yeah, that is very good to hear, because certainly that is what it was like when I was there. But I did work in a big city firm doing big corporate stuff, so you kind of knew what you were letting yourself in for, really. But still, it was quite grim at times. But I am pleased to hear that you think that's moving, it's moving away from that, and I know you're not in a corporate firm, you're in a firm doing in crime, but it's really great to hear that you're getting the support you need given what you're doing. So I'm glad to hear that. So just moving on a little, what do you think have been some of your highlights then in during your 20s so far? Are there any highlights or lowlights, really?
Highlights, I think, are probably becoming more independent, because I think it's funny, like when I was trying to think about my overall experience of my 20s, I was thinking, God, I've been so different every year. Like if I even looked at myself the previous year, I was so different, and the year before that. But I think just becoming like creeping into like independence year on year has sort of been the highlight. And I think maybe this year, I know I probably think in academic years, so from sort of like September to September, I've definitely become more independent, and that I think has been the highlight for me, because when you're at home and you're codependent on your family, and then you move to uni and you think you've really grown up and you're independent, but you're absolutely not, and you're so codependent on your friends. Like I didn't even do a food shop on my own. You go everywhere with everyone, you're never on your own. And then I moved in a romantic relationship, and then you're codependent on them, or you're codependent on really close friends. And I think I then just had a complete shake up and did uni on my own last year, and was spent a lot of time traveling on the train on my own, and it made me realize, like, wow, I've really just not done this before. I've not done anything on my own, and then actually just really enjoyed that, and then thought more who you are rather than just living alongside another person. So I think that's probably been the highlight, sort of coming into my own a bit, being a bit more independent.
And perhaps feeling a bit more capable on your own, maybe. Is that sort of, you know, that you are capable of so much more by yourself than you thought you were?
Yeah, 100%. Definitely. I think that I would say is probably the highlight. Yeah, realizing what you can do on your own, because things don't really seem like an achievement, like, you know, like renting your own place. It's that bit you know, a bit more satisfying when you're sort of orchestrating that on your own rather than doing it as part of a couple or part of a so yeah, that's a good way of summarizing it, realizing what you're capable of.
And so I think, what do I think? I think that's great, and I think that is absolutely part of learning a bit more about yourself, and learning what you're okay with and what you're not okay with, and knowing when you need help and when actually you're okay, and just growing and developing, and that's kind of, you know, what your 20s is about quite a lot of the time. Yes, you're, you know, you're working out who your partners are in life, and I don't necessarily mean romantic partners, but yes, that as well. But, you know, who are your friends who are coming along on this journey of your 20s with you as well? Not so much your family, because your family are still your family, but, you know, they're still doing what they would do anyway, and you're sort of changing, really, and in some respects, you know, your family can be the stability that stay the same. So when you need a bit of I need to just have a little recalibrate, and you know, maybe your family can be that. But actually, a lot of the time in your 20s is working out for yourself a bit more about yourself, so that you can have a better relationship with yourself, maybe.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's probably what I feel like I've probably done by this midpoint. But I suppose that I think that does probably go hand in hand with my lows. Is like, at the time you think like loss of relationships or loss of really good friends has been like sort of really awful for me, like throughout my 20s, like losing people I thought I were going to be really, really close with. But then actually that was just part of the growing process as well. So while that was like really negative at the time, and I thought that really stained my 20s, actually probably that's worked out being a really good bit, and growing and changing and realizing who you are once you've sort of crept out of that codependency with other people.
Yes, and I think you can often only see it as something positive, definitely after the event. You know, you can't while you're in the middle of it, because you're too busy living it, aren't you? But afterwards, if you can just take a little time to actually think about it and realize that, okay, that was pretty rubbish, but at the time, but actually maybe now I can see it. I mean, hopefully one can turn and think it was for the best, or even if you can't think that, what have I learned from it? What do I know now that I didn't know then, and how has it changed me, and how have I grown? And I think there's so much of that going on as you leave home and leave academia and go out into the world of work and meet new people and have, you know, more experiences of, like, you know, gosh, you know, you see so many different people from different walks of life all the time. I mean, that is really, you know, 20s on steroids, really, isn't it? You know, it's like you know, you're just getting so many people. I know they're not in your life because they're not your friends and things like that, but you are meeting and seeing so many different people. But even you know, people in their 20s who don't have a job like you know, you are out there doing different things, so you're bound to be getting new experience, you know, having new experiences and meeting new people. And it is all about, okay, where are these people going to fit into my life or not? Is this fleeting? Is this just a great chat in a bar one night, or actually is there more to this than that? Or is this somebody who I just see at work, or actually do I really want to be friends with them outside work? It's all those sorts of things, isn't it? And I tend to think that is all part of the big questions that come up in your 20s, like who am I, what do I want to do, what is my life going to be about, and those are big questions, but you don't have to have the answers. It's almost by experiencing it and living it and doing a bit of this and meeting these people and going here and doing that, and or actually just spending time on your own and thinking, okay, what is going on for me now? All those experiences sort of fit together to start to form a bigger picture. Does that
yeah,
sound
that
like
does.
sort of your experience?
Yeah, there is just so many and like the self pressure and questions of am I where I thought I would be by now, or should I have achieved this and this by now? Because I think whatever type of person you are, because I'm someone who've always known what they wanted to do, so I think other people would look at me and think, oh, well, you're doing what you want to do, so what have you got to think about? But then sometimes it's weirder when you're actually doing it, and then you think, oh, hang on, now I've got that bit sorted, I haven't really thought about like who I am or what other impacts or things I want to have done in my life. Whereas I think other people who don't necessarily know what they want to do, like career wise or life wise, or where they want to live wise, you know, they probably think, oh, you know, she hasn't got too much thinking to do. But I think I spent so much time thinking, got to do this, got to get to this career. And I think now I'm sort of in like, you know, foot in the door. You then start asking yourself, I found myself asking more questions. I'm now sort of sorted, for want of a better phrase. It's like everything's in boxes, and once I've sort of like sorted out that box, I'm like, whoa, go look at all these boxes of like, you know, who am I, what sort of, when I think that's why people in their 20s just completely inundate themselves with social media and reading all these books we should be reading and deciding where I sit on this. I think that's what's so exhausting about being in your 20s, is you kind of have to feel like you have to decide where you sit on everything, politics and sustainability and vegetarianism and sustainability, and like we've got to, it can be a bit exhausting sometimes trying to go, all right, what's my opinion on this, or where am I on that, and do I need to think about this more, do I need to read up on this more? And it's just, I think we give ourselves a lot of pressure.
Wow, that sounds pretty exhausting just listening to you. I'm not sure I know what my opinion on all those things are, actually. So that's really interesting to hear that you feel a certain amount of pressure to have a view on those things. I mean, you know, that is a lot going on. So not only are you thinking, okay, well, what job am I doing? Is this the right job? Is this the job I want to do? Are there other jobs out there I want to, you know, your career is one thing, isn't it? You know, where you live, who you're living with. I mean, you know, those are all big questions. Then, okay, where do I stand on all these subjects, and what is my opinion on this? Oh gosh, that is a lot.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's the social media effect, that we're the generation that probably grew up on the cusp of having opinions so readily available in our faces all the time, like things like Twitter. It's so easy to but it's just processing that and not letting it overwhelm us.
Yeah, gosh, I can imagine. And also I think it's quite hard to make sure you get a balanced view as well. But yeah, gosh, I'm exhausted now just listening to all that. So well done you for getting to 25 then.
Without burning out.
Yeah, exactly. So that is a lot. So how so what things do you think are there any things that you think you've learned that have been useful to you? I know that's quite a big sort of like a wide question, but are there any things in particular that you found useful, or I don't know, a book that's been useful, or I tend to, you know, or a practice that you might have, like, you know, if I'm not sure about something, I'll do this, or if I am feeling overwhelmed, I'll do that. I'm just interested.
I had, when last year was really, really stressful for me, I found just listening to podcasts, ironically, just listening to other, like, and having it really just sort of coming in through my ears, and I think it just really sort of goes in that bit more than if I'm reading, and just listening you know, listening to other people probably having conversations like this, and then hearing other people's struggles or things like that, or people being so honest, which I think people are a bit more spoken than in like when you're reading something that's sort of polished in a book.
Yeah.
Hearing other people's sort of like struggles and imperfections, or things they're worried about, or that really helped me. And also then sort of helped you process of, oh, I didn't know I was feeling like that, but now someone's articulated it in another way. That's been hugely helpful, because I had like an hour and a half train journey every day, and I felt like I probably learned more through podcasts about life, or what I thought, or where I stood on things and processing things when I was stressed. I probably learned more listening to I just listened to whatever came up, and that's the great thing about them, I suppose. It just, they suggest something for you. And I think that's been really helpful for me.
Well, that's brilliant. I'm glad you found something that was helpful. And I like podcasts for the same reason. I like listening, and you can be doing something else at the same time, even if it's just traveling. You know, traveling on a train. I often have them on in the car if I'm going on a car journey that's worth putting something on. But they just somehow filter into your into your mind, don't they? And,
differently.
And some bits register, and I tend to find there's always something that resonates, even if you don't even necessarily think that the title of it is like, but actually when you listen, just hearing people have conversations, you're never quite sure how they're going to go. And partly my motivation for doing this series on the 20s is to I want people to know that I should imagine for the vast majority of people, whatever it is that they are going through, they are not the only one.
Yeah,
because I found, certainly when I had my breakdown, I found it really helpful to know that it wasn't just me. And I think when you're going through something, it's really easy to sort of get yourself in a bit of a state and think, oh, there's only me that's going through this. Nobody else is going to understand. And I mean, to be honest, when I found out it wasn't just me, I was a bit like, oh, right, it's not just me then. Everybody does this. What a cliche I am. But on the whole, it was quite reassuring. And that is the hope for this, that by speaking to quite a few different people about their lives, and we have this conversation and talk about various things, that actually anybody listening to this, you know, will get something out of it, or at least one of the episodes, hopefully, because it'll be something that they're feeling.
And it's just nice to hear sometimes, like, because I think when you're going through it, you think, oh, well, no one else is going through that and everyone's so sorted, and it's just so nice to just hear it. And then especially at a time now at the moment where we're all quite disconnected from one another, and we're not having, because I think this year definitely, when you're working from home or studying from home, I found I'm not sharing the tiny things which are stressing me out, which are then growing to be bigger things. Whereas if I was living in real life, I would just say that off the cuff to my best friend if I saw her on a Tuesday night and we went shopping. We've actually got into a habit now of just voice noting, which I think has been the best thing ever. Because you do feel like, oh, I can't phone them because what happens if they're busy? I don't want to bug them. But it's weirdly to nicely put out a voice note and just sharing those tiny things, like, oh, I messed up this thing at work today, or I'm a bit worried about, like not having enough money to buy everyone Christmas presents this year, or like just little things that you're sharing, which I think we're maybe not doing this year because when we're not all together, and when we do catch up, we're only saving like the best bits. And then we're not sharing those little things that are just the little stresses, which will then just get sort of zapped out as soon as we speak to someone we're close to, who just sort of like, brings it back down and shrinks this problem, like not allowing them to grow. So I think hearing things like from other people is so important.
I think you're absolutely right. That is such a really great point, that actually if you don't let the little things out, they do get bigger. and then they, you know, if you're not careful, they become to a point where they are quite a big problem. And you're right, because we're not seeing people, we're not having those little conversations and those little, oh yeah, I've not got enough, you know, I really want to do this and I've not got enough money. And then if somebody else goes, oh yeah, I can't do this because I've not got enough money to do that either, and you're going, okay, so actually there's a few of us who haven't got enough money to do everything that we want, so you don't feel quite so well, I was gonna say bad, I can't think of a better word at the moment off the top of my head, but I do think you're right. And I love voice notes as well, whether you use them on Instagram or WhatsApp or wherever you send them. I send them quite a lot, and quite a few people message me back going, oh, it's so nice to hear your voice. And
there's something nicer about it, isn't there, that even sometimes on, like, maybe just being able to like just get that to yourself and just replay it, because my mum and I, we've always left each other like silly voicemails, which we've always said, oh, we'd love to keep in case anything happened to the other one. And that's like a good thing that's come out of 2020, is that now we're now doing voice notes. Now sometimes I'll listen to them a couple of times over. One of my friends sends like ones that are like 6 minutes long, and it's just, you just and then you think, oh, should we just pick up the phone? But it's just, yeah, it's much better keeping us connected.
I do. I think it's a bit like they're a bit more 3D, aren't they? And by that they've got they're a little bit more rounded, aren't they, rather than a flat text message or WhatsApp message or whatever it is that you do. They're a little bit more rounded because, you know, it's a bit like this, like you were saying about listening to a podcast. That's a bit more rounded than reading a book. I mean, I'm all for reading books, don't get me wrong, but you get a little bit more of an essence of who the person is.
Definitely.
I so agree with you. And so if anybody is listening to this who hasn't been using voice notes, use them. They're brilliant, and they'll make somebody else's day. So we've talked about how you've got, you know, what it's been like getting to here. So what are the hopes and dreams for the rest of your 20s then? I know that's another big question, but
for the rest of my 20s, I suppose just career-wise, I think sort of I'm hopefully just on a bit of an upward. That should be fine. And I do finally go on.
No, I was going to say, have you got a training contract?
I don't. I've had a conversation with them the day before yesterday actually, about starting it in the new year. With them. So at the moment I've just sort of become police station accredited, so I can go on my own, and then the training contract's the next bit. But actually, a couple of days ago we had the chat about the training contract, because I think it's because it's good now, because you don't have to commit as much. I mean, it was like a 2-year commitment, but it's all changed now.
Okay.
That I can use any time I've been doing now towards it, whereas before you had to sort of start afresh and do the 2 years, and you had to do loads of different seats. Whereas now I can just do it at that firm, which they didn't realize as well. They thought, like, if they were going to say yes to me, they'd have to send me off to 2 other firms and they'd be losing me for like the best part of a year. But knowing now I can stay there and do it, so that's in. So
you can do your training contract just in crime now.
Just in crime, which is great, which is so good, because I don't want to spend 6 months, you know, back doing conveyancing or.
Are you sure?
I don't think I could ever sit in an office 9 to 5 ever again. But it's great that I can actually just do what I want to do. I haven't got to spend a year doing other bits of law that I'm probably never going to dabble in again. And
that is fabulous. So you deserve that, having worked so hard to get to where you are. You really deserve that training contract. That is amazing. So
thank you.
So and hopefully some of the time you've already done will count towards it. So and so actually that looks, unless you change your mind or change direction or change geographical location or something, that looks pretty as okay as anything can be, doesn't it?
So that's quite relieving. So I think just then for the rest of my 20s, I think, you know, probably just I feel like I'm in the place I should be living wise. I'm surrounded by all my friends, so I think I'm probably quite lucky to say I kind of just want my 20s to stay the same as they are, which I know we should be always looking upwards.
There is no should. There is no should, because the minute we start thinking about shoulds, we start taking sort of our own, we start giving our power away because we're doing something that we feel somebody else that expectation of should normally comes from outside, doesn't it? So actually, if you're saying, well, I should do that, why should you? Who's telling you? Where's that coming from? Is this some sort of, generic type ideal that you're living toward, that you're working towards, and that's where the shoulds come from? Well, you're giving your power away to something you don't even know what it is. So no more shoulds.
No more shoulds. I really like that.
It's completely okay for you to go, do you know what? I have worked damn hard to get to where I am, and I am going to enjoy this. And, I think we are. I do think that it's still quite often the case that people think work and life has got to be hard, and you've got to work hard at it and slog away at it, and the only way to get anywhere and do what you should, in inverted commas, do is to work hard. And it's got to, it's okay to just go, do you know what? I love where I am at the minute. This is absolute fun now. This is absolutely perfect, and I am going to enjoy it, and I'm going to have some fun.
Yes, yeah, you're right. You're so right.
I mean, I speak from being 51 and missing out on a lot of the fun because I took it all far too seriously. And that doesn't mean do as I say and not as I did. But if I could go back, I would definitely have more fun and take life much less seriously. Not totally not seriously, but I feel I worked too hard. And I spent too long living up to some ideal that I don't even know where it came from. And you if you don't even know where it comes from, you're destined to fail, really.
Yeah, that's so true.
And life can be enjoyable and fun. And gosh, it should be. We only get one.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm sounding like some agony aunt or something now, aren't I?
No, but you need to hear it, don't you? Because you constantly think, well, humans are so bad at going, oh, what are you doing now? What are you doing next? Well, like you probably found it because obviously you've just had a complete upheaval, and you've probably had everyone going, oh, what are you doing? Are you doing anything? What are you doing next? What are you doing? Have you done this yet? What?
The funniest thing is people who say to me, but you did that job for so long and you worked so hard. How can you give it up? And it's like, well, the thing is, I've only got one life, and I've spent like the last 25 years of it in the law. I've done that, and I really, I feel I've given whatever I'm going to give to the law now, and I'm going to move off and do something different. For me, it's not really. I mean, the hard thing about leaving it behind is starting again. When I don't, I don't really have a plan, but that's great. I don't think I've ever really.
But how much nicer is that than just?
Yeah. I'm just doing something that forever. I believe in, that I'm actually enjoying. I mean, what's not to like about having a great conversation with somebody great like you about life? I mean, it's marvelous. And actually, I don't want to be in that environment anymore. And I've done it. And actually, why would I spend any more of my life doing that? But that's the funny thing, that people can't seem to understand, that I don't want to do that anymore, and I've given all that up for what they seem as a bit frivolous and a bit goalless and a bit
and risky,
and risky, yes.
But then maybe that's what everyone's scared of.
I do think there might be an element in that. I don't know, but what I've got a postcard on my wall downstairs that says the only risk in life is to take no risk at all. So that's one of my mottos. So I keep looking at that and thinking, that's okay, it's all right, I'm doing it. So
I love that.
So, and it's all about judging where the risk, where is it okay to take the risk. So your risk might not be with your job, your risk might be, I don't know, living with new people who you don't know and seeing how that works out, or the risk might be, I don't know, going on holiday somewhere you've never been before and you've got no idea whether you're going to like it, or doing something, I don't know, parachute jump or something like that. You think you might be frightened to death, but do it. And I have done one of those, and it is fab, so do it. But talking of mottos, I did ask you to give you a little bit of a time to think whether there is any. And I like a good saying, so I don't want to turn into sort of, you know, an Instagram post of like all the mottos or sayings in the world, but I think some can be quite useful, and I love hearing which ones are meaningful to different people, and I just wondered if you had one that you found useful.
I do. I have
or a few.
I've got a couple. I think I've got one that I think, you know, I've always like, whenever if I'm listening to a podcast or whatever, if I read something, I always put something in my notes. And actually, when you asked me to think about this, I like delve down into my phone notes, which go back to like 2015 and 16, and I do look at them every now and again, and I think, oh, am I still sort of living by these? And one of them was the only thing constant is change, which I think is really nice.
Yes.
I really like that, because then there's this think, and exactly what we've just sort of touched on really, is I think people are quite scared of change, and I was quite scared of change, and it wasn't being that brave, but now I've sort of done it. I've realized it's so much better to just sort of keep doing little changes, all big changes and risks, like we said. So yeah. I really like that. I think
you're right that actually sometimes if a big change seems too much, then you know, little ones, just take little steps. You can nearly always break a big step down into smaller steps, and just, you know, try something new, try something different, try something that is moving you along the path towards what that big thing might be, and just see how you feel. I love that. I'm a great one for change. When I met my husband, he didn't like change, and I do like change. So we've had an interesting 15 years. But, we have lived in the same house for 15 years, and we have stayed married for 15 years. So that has been the constant. But, you know, we've had so many jobs and stuff, and But I like change, but I appreciate it's not the same for everybody.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's my one I've tried to seek comfort in now. And then one,
just tell us that one again, just remind us. The only thing
constant is change.
Okay, lovely. I like that one. The only thing
I can't tell you where that's from.
They don't need to know.
I've just written it in my note probably about 5-6 years ago. And then one I thought was quite 2020 was, you shouldn't ration the good times.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I think is really, like you said about how maybe you were in your 20s, when you're now looking back, you know,
I'm my 30s.
And you thought stressing, and then now you look back and think, oh, I wish I hadn't worked so hard, or I wish I hadn't done this, or I wish I hadn't done that. And I think this year is probably, you know, even just down to like silly things like, oh, you know, I got that bottle of champagne for my 21st and I've got to drink that on a good occasion. Stuff it. Like, if I'm with my mum and I haven't seen her for 5 months and we're just sitting in the front room, let's just drink it. Like, what are we saving things for? And I think this year has probably put everything into perspective. Like, I'd go like, oh, I shouldn't go out for dinner with my friend on a Tuesday night, because we should probably stay in or save a bit of money. Like, oh, if I want to do it, I should just do it. And I think I'm living by that a bit more, because we don't really know what's going to be, you know, what's going to happen next. So I'm just, you know, trying to live by that a bit, and just trying to always have a good time, and not, you know, don't just think, oh, this is now the time I've got to work till 9 p.m. every night, because that's the only way I'm going to make my career, and I shouldn't go out and I should do this. Like, I think I've tried to live by that. Having had a year where I was so stressed and probably a little bit miserable, and now I'm kind of out the other side of it, I'm just thinking, we shouldn't punish ourselves like that, and just have more good times more often, and stop saving them in case we never get to them.
Absolutely, because you know, we do only live once, and yes, we do have to have an eye on. You know, we do need to have an eye on what's coming, but equally enjoy now. Really enjoy now. I think that's I like that. You shouldn't ration the good times.
Yeah, ration the good times.
I love that. I think they're great.
Thanks. Yeah. can't tell you where they're from, and I don't want to take ownership for them, but
no, I think they are great, so thank you. That is brilliant. Callie, thank you so much for your time. It's been fabulous talking to you. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure people listening to this are going to get a lot from it, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Meeting of Minds podcast. You can find this podcast in all the usual places. Please tell your friends, please subscribe, and if you have a moment, I'd be really grateful if you could rate and review, as it helps other people find us and helps me spread the messages of empowerment and positivity that I'm really passionate about. If you want to find out more about me, you can visit my website at www.safeandsupported.co.uk. Until next time, bye.